welcome to the first in a literary series that we are hosting with our friends at the KMU Library. We are extremely happy to have Chitra Viraraghavan with us.
Thank you.
And yeah, welcome. Before I introduce you, yes, thank you. And before we start, I'd like to say that it's wonderful to see so many members of the Kodai community here joining us at school. So a warm welcome to all of you. Chitra Viraraghavan studied at KIS between the years 1980 and 1983. She received the Journalism and Social Sciences Award in her graduating year and was inducted into the National Honor Society. She went on to do her bachelor's and master's degrees in English literature at Stella Maris College in Madras. Between 1988 and 1993, she worked as an editor with Oxford University Press, India, based in Madras. And in 1993, she went to Tufts University in Massachusetts to do a PhD, also in English.
Yes.
And as a doctoral candidate, she taught freshman English and ESL to first-year university students, including a number of international students. She received her PhD in 2000 for her dissertation entitled Capital Adventures, Gender, Economics, and Englishness in Victorian Fiction. Since her return to Chennai, she has been a textbook writer as well as a freelance book editor. Her first novel, The Americans, was published in April 2014 by Fourth Estate, which is the literary imprint of HarperCollins India. HarperCollins USA has acquired the US rights of her novel, and The Americans will be released in the US in the summer of 2015. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I will read a short book synopsis as well. Tara, you pronounce your character Tara or Tara? Tara. Single, Indian, mid-30s, traveling from Madras, Chennai, to the US at her sister's behest, is the linking character in a novel with 10 others, each telling their own story. Set in different American cities in 2005. Based mostly in the Indian American community, the stories explore what it means to be in America, what it means to be American, with the novel's title referring to the sometimes ironic distance between perception and reality. So first of all, just something about the book that I noticed. I mean, it's a series of character-driven narratives, and as it says in the introduction, there's 11 different characters. Right? And they're certainly, the chapters are certainly connected thematically. And otherwise, in other ways they're connected to. And it is, you know, but they could also stand apart to some extent.
Yes, I guess there is the one linking character, which is Tara, and she's the one who kind of ties all the others together. But each of them has their own independent story, and not all are necessarily linked. They don't even meet. And some characters come into the book halfway through the book as well. So it's almost like a play in a sense, where there are people coming in and going out. And yes, and all independent stories in a way. Okay,
and we'd love to hear you read a piece. And it may be good to tell the audience the character.
Yep. This story is, this is from the section about a boy called Rahul. He's 9 years old and he's autistic. And his sister is called Lavi. She has her own story. But there will be references to Lavi, so I just want you to know that. And his language, I've tried, I don't know how well I've succeeded, but I've tried to mimic how an autistic person might write or think. And so I think you might find that in the language. I'm hoping you will. The boy in the drawing had a square, pale brown face and eyes like long, narrow boxes with circles in them. The circles were colored dark brown. He had black hair that was like a fat upside-down U on top of his head. His shirt was a brilliant red, blue, and green. Excuse me. It was like the shirt Mom's sister had given him, wrapped in plastic. Lavi had taken off the plastic and hung up the shirt in his closet. The boy had skates on. The boy was flying and his shirt stretched out behind him like wings. Rahul sat on the floor of his bedroom and looked at the drawing. He colored the sky with a pale blue crayon, dividing it up into squares and then going evenly from left to right, till they were all done. He had left white spaces for the 8 clouds. They were all the same shape, like flowers with 6 perfectly symmetrical petals. There were 2 clouds in front of the boy, 2 behind him, and 4 on top. Rahul lay down on his back on the floor and stared at the ceiling. He could see the stars that Mom had pasted on the ceiling, but only just. Slowly, as he lay there, they grew brighter and brighter and brighter. Rahul looked at the stars. There were 29 of them because 1 had fallen off. They all had the same shape. He had asked Mom to stick them in regular rows. He got up and looked for his skates. He strapped them on. It took him a long time to do things like that. Then he glided to his closet. He liked skating better than walking. He took his new shirt off the hanger. Then he put it on over his white t-shirt. He didn't button up the shirt because that took too long. Rahul skated to the window. He pushed it up and open. He put 1 leg out of the window. Then, carefully, he put the other leg out of the window. He sat on the sill. It was dark outside. He could see stars high up in the sky. There were more than 29 stars in the sky. Rahul jumped. He fell and fell and fell until the net of the sky, which he could see sometimes when he squinted at it, caught him and bounced him high up, so high he was in the middle of the clouds. There were more than 8 clouds in the sky. They all had different shapes, but he didn't mind. The clouds were cool and wet and bouncy and felt good against his skin. They smelt of wind and rain and night. He flew on through the clouds, kicking his legs against the air like he did in the swimming pool. Between the clouds and from high above, the stars threw out shifting beams of light at him, pale blue, orange, red, yellow, and some colors he didn't know the names of. They reminded him of the concert Lavi had taken him once to. He had started jumping up and down and yelping because of the loud music and the lights and the people standing too close to him, so they'd gone back home. Lavi had not minded. But the beams from the stars felt different. He could hear the stars singing, some low and deep, and others light and shrill. It did not make him feel tense, it made him happy. He flew in a large arc around the city. Below him he could see lights and lights and lights, twinkling in the air and on the water. He could see the broad black river and the lights on the bridges. He could see roads come together and go apart like bright long strands of spaghetti, and the cars on them crawling like bugs. He flew over the roofs of houses, over fields and pools and people's backyards. It was so much nicer than being on a plane. He could be free, he could breathe, he didn't need to yelp or stop his ears. When he looked down, he could see that the city was joined end to end in a perfect circle. He knew exactly how he would draw it when he went back home. He flew on.
That's a round of applause. I'd like to hear Chitra again, reading another passage.
This is a character called CLN. I'm on page 159. He's, other than Kara, who is the linking character, he's the other person who is Indian, who goes from Madras also, and they meet up on the way and so on. He's 69 years old. He was a man, he's a retired maths teacher, and his wife, I think, died the previous year. And so he's traveling to the US to visit his daughter. And then when he's there, he finds, I'm just setting it up for you. When he's there, he finds that she's caught up in her own life. And so, as very many people find, you're kind of isolated there, and you're also culturally isolated. You don't really know the place. Many places don't have public transport. So you're kind of stuck. And so he decides to venture out on his own, and when he does this at the local public library, he meets a woman who is researching, who's doing some research for a local professor about immigration and immigrant patterns and so on, and they befriend each other. And then he finds that he has to leave suddenly. So he has to cut his visit short, and his friend, her name is Anne, has to decides to take him to Chicago on a visit because he's never seen it. As arranged, Anne picked him up from the house at about 10 o'clock. It was a sunny morning, but she had warned him to dress warm and bring a jacket along. Chicago had a well-known reputation for being windy, or was that about gas-bagged politicians? As they drove through Riverside to get to the highway, he saw that people had put up flags outside their houses, happy to be rid of a long grey, snowy winter, in favor of fresh spring colors, new leaves, blooming trees, blue skies. The flags had cheerful themes: flowers, hummingbirds, ladybirds, butterflies. Some had slogans: "Be happy, welcome spring." When they got to the highway, 290E, the signpost said, the small town atmosphere gave way to a more bleak industrial landscape with a broad, straight road with several lanes, fast-moving traffic, and exits marked everywhere. It seemed there were no towns or cities on the highway. One had to take the right exit to get to them. What happened if one missed the exit? Miles of driving to get back on track, she said. It all seemed very convoluted. It would take them about an hour or longer to get there, she said. There was a lot of construction activity going on. They stopped at toll booths, past exits to places like Naperville, Downers Grove, Oak Park. At one place, he noticed the highway was named for Dwight D. Eisenhower. I like Ike. And what was the other one? Oh yes, I like Adelaide, Madeleine. What? Said Anne amused. Did you really say I like Adelaide, Madeleine? He laughed, realizing he had spoken aloud. Yes, I was remembering the campaigns from the 50s. Wasn't Adlai Stevenson from around here? Yes, very good, Democrat from Chicago, she said. He was governor of Illinois at one point, I think. Lost both times to Ike. The traffic in the urban maze got denser as they drove east, closer and closer to Chicago, the looming skyline acting as navigator. On the other side was Lake Michigan. He knew from the map he had looked at in Sonny's room. Anne looked at the time. So let's do lunch, then we could go up, see a star, you get great views. If there's time, maybe a museum. Or we could just drive along the lakeshore. He was happy to be out with someone friendly. He would pay for lunch and half the fuel if she let him. Rangi had given him pocket money. The city was vertical, held together by the elevated train system, the L she called it, that looped around it. They could only move slowly through it, its bowels clogged with traffic. At lunch, he told her he was going back, keeping details to a minimum. She looked at him, seemed about to say something, then was quiet. He felt a shift in the mood. When they walked on Jackson Boulevard after parking the car, the air felt cold and dry. He pulled his jacket closer around him, put his hands into the pockets. Up ahead were the nine square tube-like structures that made up the car. Apparently a man in a Spider-Man suit had once climbed them using suction cups. When he got to the top, he was arrested for trespassing. They couldn't figure out what to charge him with, she said, shaking her head. He felt somewhat winded when they emerged after a minute in the elevator onto the deck, 103 floors up in the sky. He wondered whether it was just his head, but the tower seemed to sway a little in the sudden strong winds gusting against it. Anne held his arm, steadying him. What do you expect? You're on top of the world, she said, laughing, leaning into the windows. When he looked out, he could see the great living map of the city below them, and beyond the vast shimmering lake and across the endless plains of Illinois. 4 states, she said, forgetting that she was still holding his arm. Illinois, of which this is the highest point, and across the lake, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Isn't it magnificent? Without thinking, he covered her hand on his arm with his hand and pressed it. They stayed like that, looking out in silence. There he was, really on top of the world, with nothing, no one to hold him back. He felt his heart was going to unmoor with lightness and freedom.